And welcome back to Sports Done Right. It has been a very crazy week in football. Middle Tennessee beat Miami.
Typical Hurricanes.
Clemson escapes Wake Forest in double overtime.
Demon Deacons, baby.
Kent State went the distance with Georgia. Who had that on their NCAA bingo card?
I was hoping they were going to get it done.
And then Texas Tech and Lubbock picks up the win over their hated rivals, the Texas Longhorns. Different story if Quinn Ewers was on the field, but hey, somewhere Michael Crabtree is smiling down on Lubbock. It's been an absolutely crazy week in college football. But in the world of the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023 nominees have been revealed. The 129 modern era nominees and the select few senior committee nominees have been revealed, including 9 first-year eligible players, which we will rank right here on the show. As a matter of fact, on today's show, we are returning the segment where there's smoke, there's fire. Our overreaction segment is Urban Meyer returning to coaching. Oh God, no. Please, please no. We rank the first-year eligible Hall of Fame nominees. I made a list. He made a list. We disagree, naturally.
Not too much on the list, but with it.
Actually, that's the annoying thing. Me and my brother love making lists, ranking things, and comparing them. And we are usually so frustratingly similar in our rankings. Every time we make a top 10, there's like 2 differences. And then I will pick my Hall of Fame finalists. The 129 modern era nominees will be whittled down to 15 in November. I'm going to do that myself on this show and then name the offensive and defensive players of the week. As always, every single one of these talking points is timestamped in the description of this video if you want to skip ahead to a certain point. But without further ado, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, Nathaniel Hackett can't hack it in the NFL as a head coach. You think it's just a smokescreen, or you think there's some truth to that statement?
I definitely think there's some truth to that statement.
Really? Do tell.
Well, you got Russell Wilson at quarterback. I think they got a solid offense. Javonte Williams in the backfield, Cortland Sutton at wide receiver. But I've watched the games because especially that primetime game they had against the Seahawks. There's so many spots in these games where they can easily pull away, but that offense just looks like a train wreck. I mean, I don't know what I'm watching sometimes. Like this team with the right head coach right now could be flourishing right now, but not from what I've been seeing.
Nathaniel Hackett's biggest weakness so far has been time management. It has been appalling. And anyone that watched the Monday Night Manning live stream witnessed Peyton Manning call timeout 67 times on the Broncos' final drive. They had all 3 timeouts, a minute left, and they ran the play clock all the way down. Peyton Manning called timeout 67 times. All right, now
I'm watching from home doing the same thing.
There was a counter. So there was a
Manning
timeout
there
counter.
Was.
All right, let's get a timeout here. I want to get a timeout. Talk this over. Let's think about this. Let's think about this. Let's get a timeout. Call timeout like right now. Like we need a timeout right now. We need a timeout right now. Let's talk. Don't you want to talk about it? Don't you want to talk about it? They were sending Peyton into cardiac arrest. But Hackett's time management has been appalling. And then instead of calling timeout like Peyton and every Denver fan with a pulse wanted them to do, he ran the clock all the way down.
Not even a Denver fan, and I was feeling for him.
Trotted out Brandon McManus to kick a field goal that he has never made before in his career. And honestly, I felt that the Broncos were a bit overhyped going into the season. I mean, I feel like people put them on the pedestal just because they brought in Russell Wilson. And it's like, yes, Russell Wilson is a huge get. That skyrockets your team's value. But you're still in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. And then the Raiders got all around better.
And Derek Carr.
And Derek Carr. No offense to Derek Carr. Well, some offense. He's not a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he's a top 10 quarterback for sure. And I just feel like the Broncos were the 4th best team in this division. And
I don't really think they were overhyped all that much. I just feel like there was a lot of build-up momentum for them going into the season, and especially all the new additions in the division. Everyone was going to be hyped up to a certain extent because we were that invested into the AFC West. Now, that man on your screen right there might be causing them a lot right
now. Now, Hackett became prominent as Green Bay's offensive coordinator.
Which I thought his quarterback was going to be following him, but
worked wonders with Aaron Rodgers. And he coached in Jacksonville for a little while, actually.
Yeah.
But now, the success that he's had with Aaron Rodgers, he's not been able to replicate in Denver. And it's not from a lack of talent. He's just not getting it done. Denver actually, I believe, hired a new offensive assistant
for
to help
game
him.
Game management decision. Which Rex Ryan actually was going off on NFL Network.
Oh, who cares about what Rex Ryan? Who cares what Rex Ryan says?
He was going off this morning because he was like, that's just disrespectful to hire him like that. He had some words to say about that.
Who cares what Rex Ryan says? Go eat your goddamn snack, Rex. I mean, I'm sorry. When your most famous quote is "Let's go eat a goddamn snack," then I don't really care about your criticism.
I've never even heard that.
Really?
Yes. First time I'm hearing it.
It was hilarious. But anyway, we're both going with fire for this one. There's something cooking there. There is a lot of truth to that statement.
I want to say fire, but a small one just because we're very early into the season.
It's brewing.
But it's definitely brewing. But it's very early in the season. If stuff like this is still happening, like during the mid-season, wow, they have some problems.
Yeah. Next up, we have Urban Meyer. Is he returning to coaching? Is he? I'm dreaming this, right?
I'll go fire.
You say fire.
I'll go fire just because I know he's been waiting for another coaching job. I don't think the Jaguars. I don't even want to talk about that. I don't know why that was even a thing, but I do believe he is.
I was skeptical from the beginning.
I do believe he's waiting for another
Didn't
college
expect
offer. I think Nebraska would be a good fit for him.
Yes,
I mean, what do they have to lose? They haven't been relevant
well,
since the 90s.
Assuming that they still have their self-respect, which do they?
I think that goes out the window once
do they still have their self-respect?
After that Scott Frost incident.
Assuming that they have any shred of dignity left, then that would be what they have to lose. But for anyone who doesn't know, Nebraska fired their head coach, Scott Frost, after, the second game of the season? They fired him. And what made this newsworthy was, other than the fact that it's a head coach being fired, if they had just waited 2 or 3 weeks before firing him, then they could have saved themselves a bunch of money due to the language of the contract.
Yeah, well, they would have saved them about $7 million.
But they didn't care. It's like, you know what? What's $7 million? We're a big-time university. Get him out. And now, with people speculating who's going to be the next head coach in Nebraska, Urban Meyer's name has been brought up.
I mean, their fans were cheering for him. So, I mean, if you want to talk about a respect level, maybe the fans have to answer that one for you.
They're husking more than corn if they want Urban Meyer.
I mean, I don't think it would be that bad of an idea.
They're growing something else in those fields.
We've seen what he can do at college.
Now, the thing that would make this make sense is Urban Meyer is a college football coaching legend.
He sure is an NFL legend.
He's a legend. Legendarily awful.
That's the worst NFL coach of all time. I don't want to hear anything.
He is the worst NFL head coach of all time. I mean, at least when Bobby Petrino failed after his first year, at least he quit. He left on his own accord. They were going to keep him.
I don't think I've seen so
Urban
many.
was fired.
I don't think I've seen so many headlines. I would just turn on the TV every day. It's something new, but I don't.
Every day
That's
it
a whole
was
different
every
story.
day it was something new. But Urban is a college football coaching legend. Now his record at the University of Florida was 65-15 with a 5-1 bowl record. His record at Ohio State was 83-9 with a 5-2 bowl record. He also coached at Bowling Green in Utah, and his overall record as a head coach in college football is 187-32 with a 12-3 bowl record. That is,
I don't see how you can ask for much better numbers than that.
that's up there. Now, Nebraska hasn't been prominent in college football since Eric Crouch.
Correct.
Yes, we're not big Eric Crouch fans. Probably the most undeserving Heisman Trophy winner in the most undeserving award winner period in the history of sports in general. But
Rexy Rex.
But these are not the. He thinks Rex Grossman should have won the Heisman that year.
Should've.
But this is not the Nebraska of old with Tommy Frazier and Lawrence Phillips running the wishbone offense. This is not the Eric Crouch Nebraska. This is an absolute train wreck. Just the train burst into flames, came off the track. Everyone died.
And they picked up so much talent in the portal, and I watched them against Northwestern, and I'm thinking this team has really improved. This coaching staff just sucks.
But I would like to think that no one is going to hire Urban Meyer again to be a coach in general.
I think Nebraska should.
However, if Bobby Petrino can still find work, then I guess anybody can still find work as long as you have a winning record.
But see, here's another reason why I think it could happen, because you got to think about what this can do to Urban Meyer's resume. As good as it already is, bringing Nebraska back up too. I mean, why wouldn't he want this job?
Plus, Jacksonville left a bad taste in his mouth. Now everyone thinks that I'm some kind of monster and control freak. My reputation is ruined.
Oh, it is.
There's a lot of fame and money to be got in rebuilding my reputation if I take this Nebraska job. I'd like to say that everyone is just blowing smoke right now.
It's smoke, but it's leading to fire.
I'd like to say everyone's just blowing smoke, but if this happens, I will lose every bit of respect I have for probably the state of Nebraska, not just the school, just the state of Nebraska.
Why?
Okay, just the school.
Why?
Because you're bringing in Urban Meyer.
It would be a smart move.
There's plenty of other coaches.
Like who?
Well, okay, good point. What coaches would Nebraska feasibly be able to get? Because they're not. It's not like
there's some nice candidates out there, but who really wants to leave for Nebraska right now? That's a man right there.
Not like
that could use this opportunity.
That's a good point. It's not like they could grab Luke Fickell or Matt Campbell or
Dave Miranda's locked in at Baylor.
Or Dave Miranda.
I'm telling you, Urban. I think it's a mutual agreement thing. Nebraska needs to take a shot. I mean, what else do they have to lose? And he could use another run. I think it works out.
I think he's just despicable. He's not as despicable.
Let's get the Jaguar stuff out of the back of our heads and look at Nebraska.
I'm looking at the man wearing a Jaguar shirt right now. It's a bit hard to do that. Now, over the offseason, Tyreek Hill was hyping up Tua to the moon. He said that when he was being asked why he chose the Dolphins over other teams, like, say, the Jets, he said, Zach Wilson is a dog, but I'd rather play with the most accurate QB in the league.
Yeah, Chihuahua.
Tua actually has one of the prettiest balls I've ever caught in my life, says Tyreek Hill. And of the 2022 Miami Dolphins compared to the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs, comparing the two offenses, Tyreek Hill says, I see the same exact team. Now, I wasn't exactly feeling that when he said it then, but starting to see it now. So, was Tyreek Hill just blowing smoke, or is Tua actually that good?
First of all, second of all, um, I think people just think it's cool to joke on Tua just because it's a funny thing to do on social media. And yeah, you can't throw the ball all that far.
Everyone keeps saying noodle arm, noodle arm.
I've been had trust in Tua. I never even bought into any of that. I completely agree with what Tyreek Hill is saying. And Tua doesn't even have to bomb it down the field. Tyreek Hill is better in slant positioning.
I mean, it's what you got the burners for. I mean, look at that receiving core. That's a track meet.
I mean, you talk about the running back position too, and Mostert and Edmonds.
Miami just pulled all the sprinters from the track team and put them in the receiving room. Just they've got so much speed on that offense.
I mean, that's the only team that matters in Hard Rock, but I think Tua is legit QB1.
Now, when Tua was at Alabama, I always thought that he was a good quarterback, but I always questioned whether he would be successful in the NFL. And it's not because I questioned Tua's ability to be productive at the next level. I didn't question that. I didn't question his skills.
For me, it was the injuries at the end.
That's just it. It was the injuries. I felt that Tua was too injury prone. I felt that he wouldn't be able to stay healthy. And that's kind of been true during his short tenure in the NFL. But I think he's hitting his stride. He's coming into his own. He's coming into his prime. And if he does stay healthy, how far can this Miami team go?
That's like a really good question because I have like faith in them, but that AFC is so stacked.
I
don't know how they compare to other teams because they can score with the best of them. But I don't.
You got to run the gauntlet in the AFC.
I don't think this is like the year for them to necessarily represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But I can definitely see this team making a playoff. Speaking of them, they're playing right now, and they're showing the Titans and Raiders over the Dolphins and Bills. I just had to.
This is airing on Wednesday, Chase. Keep that in mind.
I'm just saying, this is being recorded on Sunday, and the Titans and Raiders is playing over the Dolphins and the Bills.
We live in Jacksonville, and they're not showing the Dolphins game in Jacksonville while we wait for the Jaguars to kick off later today. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Had to throw that out.
Yes, but and I don't understand why everyone wants to say, "Oh, noodle arm," and everything, and they rag on his height. He's not that short, really.
Well, I think first of all, the
only thing I don't like about Tua's throwing, and it's just a complete nitpick. It has nothing to do with his actual throwing. What he does with his non-throwing hand. Yep. You ever see when he throws, and he's left-handed, when he throws the ball, you ever see the way he holds his right hand? He holds it.
I think I've seen a picture.
Every time, like every other quarterback, their non-throwing hand is like this. They throw, and they're not throwing hands like this. Tua's, he holds it up like some mangled claw. He holds his hand like he just pulled it out of a live garbage disposal. That's what it looks like.
I still don't think they should have fired Brian Flores, but now, I think they made a great hire. I think they made a really good hire, especially getting the offensive mind and working it with this offense. But I still think Brian Flores was cut loose.
Yes, I was against firing Brian Flores.
They made up for it though.
But Mike McDaniel,
they made up for it. Thank you.
I'll take that trade off. I will take that trade off all day. He's a mad scientist. He's moving tight ends out wide, putting running backs in the slot and on the outside, and running 5 wide sets with only 2 receivers, a tight end, and 2 running backs, and an empty backfield. And the routes they're running, it is absolutely insane. If you ever seen Dan Orlovsky breaks down Miami tape on his Twitter feed, It is insane. He breaks it down so well and
I
explains
came
it
to
so
a more
well.
liking.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was skeptical of him when he became an analyst because I thought you were a terrible quarterback. What do you know about quarterbacking? But that was short-sighted.
Now, at this time of recording, though, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are number 1 and 2 in receiving yards in the NFL.
And Tua has completed 71.1% of his passes, which really, feeds into that most accurate quarterback in the league comment that Tyreek made. He has thrown for 739 yards, most in the league, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 116.5.
Oof.
Madden numbers. Those are Madden numbers.
Will he keep it up for the whole season, though? Find out.
Hey, if he stays healthy, then I think right now Tua it sees the Mount Rushmore of young quarterbacks. That Mount Rushmore, it's got like Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, and whatever the fourth quarterback you want to pick, Trevor, Burrow, Lamar, Kyler. Tua wants to stake his claim to that fourth.
I wonder
Bust.
where we will rank Tua, like within quarterbacks.
He's been disrespected. Everyone keeps talking about Miami trying to move on from him. They tried to get Burrow, or they tried to get Brady, and they've been trying to move on from Tua since they drafted him. But now he's showing everyone what he's capable of. But now moving on, we rank the 9 first-year eligible players for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023. And at number 9, me and Chase both agreed on Shane Lechler.
Nothing against him, but it's a punter.
It's very hard for special teamers to make it into the Hall of Fame. Now, to be fair, Shane Lechler, you could say, is 1 or 2 on the all-time greatest punters list. Depends on if you hold him in higher esteem than Ray Guy. But Lechler,
Didn't Ray Guy play for the Raiders too?
yes, Ray Guy did play for the Raiders. Now, Lechler played from 2000 to 2017. He played for the Raiders and the Texans, 7 Pro Bowls, 6 All-Pro selections. He made it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame's All-Decade team for the 2000s and for the 2010s. He was the punter for 2 All-Decade teams. And his career average is 47.6 yards per punt. So, yeah, he might even be better than Ray Guy was, the greatest punter of all time, but I don't see him getting in. I can't see it. No offense. No offense to Shane Lechler whatsoever. But number 8, we both have Navarro Bowman. He played from 2010 to 2017. He missed 1 entire season due to an MCL sprain. 3 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pro selections. 7 years with the Niners, 1 with the Raiders. 154 tackles in 2015. That was his best year. And 798 tackles, 14 sacks in his career. Anything to add, Chase?
I mean, I remember just watching him. The dude was flying all over the field, and he was really solid. But like I said, he didn't have the longest career. So I think that's what keeps him lower on the list.
He had a very short career. Now, that San Francisco team with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, that linebacking core. Then they had Justin Smith and those other guys on the defensive line. That was a scary defense. That was something else. But Bowman, he didn't play as long as the other guys on this list, and he didn't have the same level of production as a Patrick Willis. I think Willis will get in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Bowman will. Moving on. Number 7, we both have Bam Bam Cam Chancellor. One of my favorite nicknames ever.
Great picture you could have picked for him too.
Bam Bam Cam.
That's the first play I think of.
First play.
That's the one where he got the flag and then he did it again.
Yep. Cam Chancellor, the very first play I think of when I think of Cam Chancellor is when he leapt over the Panthers' line to block a kick. He was penalized for leaping, because I think he like landed on the guy.
Yeah.
And if you leap, you can't land on the guy. It's a penalty. If you land past him, then it's not a penalty, which is doesn't make sense to me. But
It's only that's the only type of penalty you hear about when it happens.
yeah, that's one of those penalties that gets called once a decade. But Cam Chancellor leapt over the line, blocked the kick, penalty. They redo the kick. He leaps over the line again, blocked it again. No penalty this time. It's insane.
You know, I didn't know what he looked like forever because he always had the dark visor.
He always had the dark visor. Yes. Now, Cam Chancellor played from 2010 to 2017 for Pro Bowls, won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, 607 career tackles, 12 interceptions. He was the heart and soul of the Legion of Boom defense, one of the greatest defenses of all time.
Probably my favorite Seahawk of all time, honestly. Well, behind Marshawn.
And oh man, the hits that he would deliver. There's a reason we call him Bam Cam. Now, moving on. Number 6, Jari Evans played for the Saints and the Packers. 2006 to 2017, 6 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pros, won a Super Bowl protecting Drew Brees. All-Decade 2010s team. He played 183 career games. He started every single one of those games. Anything to add?
He's a very solid offensive lineman. I mean, he made a Pro Bowl, almost every year that he played?
Well, he played for 11 or 12 years. He made 6 Pro Bowls.
He's still a very solid offensive lineman.
Yes, and he was...
I don't really know too much about him.
He was one of the anchors of one of the best offenses in league history. Those Saints offenses with Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Those high-flying, high-scoring Saints offenses. He was the anchor of that offensive line. Now, moving on. DJ2K, Chris Johnson.
Love-hate relationship with that man right there.
Yeah. One of the defining running backs of an era, wouldn't you agree? Johnson played from 2008 to 2017. 3 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro. In 2009, he carried the ball 358 times for 2,006 yards, 14 touchdowns, averaging 125.4 yards per game in only his second year in the league. That's when he earned the name CJ2K. However, he kind of became addicted to the big play. He was always looking to break the big run on every single play, and it worked against him. And he never recaptured that 2,000-yard form. He retires with 9,651 career rushing yards, 11,906 scrimmage yards, 64 total touchdowns.
I mean, I just remember like the battles he would have with Jones-Drew.
Oh, when the Jaguars would play the Titans, and
it was a running because we didn't have quarterbacks.
Oh no, our passing games were atrocious.
Well, it was like Blaine Gabbert versus Jake Locker.
Yep.
Chris Johnson is one of the most electrifying running backs that I've ever watched.
Maurice Jones-Drew would run for 100, and Chris Johnson would run for like 110. Yep. Next on the list, number 4, I have James Harrison. Chase has Dwight Freeney. We have our first disagreement on the list. So let's break it down. Now, I had James Harrison, who played from 2002 to 2017. Actually, both of these men played from 2002 to 2017. Harrison, 5 Pro Bowls, 2-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl winner, Defensive Player of the Year in 2008. 811 career tackles, 84.5 sacks, 34 forced fumbles, 9 fumbles recovered, 8 interceptions, a touchdown, a safety. And of course, when you think of James Harrison, the first thing you think of, other than his terrifying image, is that play in Super Bowl 43 when he intercepted Kurt Warner on the goal line, ran it all the way back, 100 yards for a touchdown, and almost got stopped by Larry Fitzgerald.
Top 5 Super Bowl.
Top 5 Super Bowl, top 5 Super Bowl play. That's one of the greatest plays in football history. This big man, this giant human being, running 100 yards. The blocking was great.
Oh, yeah.
he got
He
great.
broke like 4 tackles just to get there.
He broke a lot of tackles because he's a big man and he was just shoving people off of him. But he had great blocking and he had a full head of steam when he got the ball in the first place. But Larry Fitzgerald is trying his darndest to run the big man down.
Just running through players and coaches on the sideline.
Fitzgerald ran through his own bench, shoving people out the way, trying to catch up. He finally jumps on Harrison's back, literally as he crosses the goal line. If Larry Fitzgerald didn't have to maneuver his way through the crowd of people,
We had to make that jump too.
oh yeah, he had to leap. If Fitzgerald didn't have to maneuver through the crowd, he'd have stopped Harrison.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, Cardinals would have won their first Super Bowl ever. But it wasn't meant to be. It's a huge effort play, and then you see Harrison on the sideline with the oxygen mask. I don't know if he's ever run 100 yards consecutively in his life. And then you have Dwight Freeney. Dwight Freeney, 7 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros. He won a Super Bowl. The Hall of Fame's All-Decade Team for the 2000s. 350 career tackles, 125.5 sacks, 47 forced fumbles, 4 fumbles recovered, and his 125.5 sacks rank 18th in NFL history. So now, why do I have Harrison at 4 and you have Freeney at 4?
Well, I got Harrison over Freeney just for the sole fact that I feel like Harrison just did more for the defense. Just all around. Don't get me wrong. Both of these players are, top players of our time. But I feel like Freeney was more of getting to the quarterback, which he did, 18th all time. It shows for the sacks total. I just think Harrison did more for the defense, contributed to 2 Super Bowls, and I just feel like he was more of a force to be reckoned with on the other side of the ball.
That's a fair point. Now, my whole thing is, I feel like Freeney, he came in and he was that guy. Freeney, first of all, I firmly believe that if you were the best of all time at one thing, then you deserve the credit for it, you deserve the Hall of Fame nomination for it. Dwight Freeney was the master of the spin move and the strip sack. No one did. Dwight Freeney's spin move off the line, getting past a lineman. His spin move was deadly. It was the prettiest spin move in the game. It was unstoppable. He was the master of it. And he racked up probably more strip sacks than anyone, I think. Not entirely sure about that. And he came into the league and he was like that. Harrison, on the other hand, was cut from multiple practice squads before finally making the Pittsburgh Steelers roster at the age of 24 years old. He finally became a starter at the age of 29, and he retired at the age of 39. I feel like Freeney was better for longer.
You can say that.
And I feel that Freeney got that 18th all-time in career sacks. You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame for that. And just being the master of the spin move. I mean, Freeney just edges him out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point about how he didn't get his, first real start until 29 years old. But I'm taking 92 over 93.
But think about that. Think about hitting your prime at 29.
I mean, he played
until he's playing until you're 39.
I mean, who can really say that they were still a force to be reckoned with while they should be sitting on the couch?
We're not talking about a kicker or a quarterback playing to
this man's over here running all over the field on defense, stopping people at 36.
Yeah, he's knocking heads with the big uglies and the hog mollies.
Yeah.
A lot more wear and tear. And to do that to age 39 is impressive. But moving on, at number 3, I have Dwight Freeney and Chase has James Harrison. But at number 2, I have Joe Thomas. Chase has Darrelle Revis. Which means at number 1, I have Darrelle Revis. Chase has Joe Thomas. Now let's discuss this. Revis from 2007.
I'm all here for it.
From 2007 to 2017, Revis, 7 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pros, 1 Super Bowl, Hall of Fame All-Decades team for the 2010s, 496 career tackles, 2 sacks, 29 interceptions, returned for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns. Joe Thomas, 2007 to 2017, 10 Pro Bowls, 6 All-Pros, All-Decades team for the 2010s, 3rd overall pick. He played 167 games, started all 167 games, and he had an Iron Man streak of 10,363 consecutive snaps. From 2007 to 2017, this man played 10,363 straight plays. He didn't miss a single play. Forget not missing a game. He didn't miss a single play for over 10 years straight.
That's the definition of reliable.
On a team that was dog shit.
And I'm gonna make my main case here for why I have Joe Thomas over Darrelle Revis.
Please do.
In 2009, Darrelle Revis had probably the best year a cornerback had ever had.
Don't you read my notes.
Hey, it's there for a reason.
That's there for me to make my point.
Well, I'm stealing it from my point. Continuing on, even though we know about Revis Island, we know what he did at cornerback, and through that little stretch, Darrelle Revis had one of the best years a cornerback could have. But let me go over to Joe Thomas's notes. More Pro Bowls, more All Pros, didn't miss a single snap for how long did you just say?
10,363 consecutive plays.
And yes, he was on the Browns that never had a good team. Put that man on a contending team.
That shouldn't be held against him whatsoever.
Put that man on a contending team and watch him get the respect he deserves. No one's going to give offensive linemen the respect they deserve like what Revis did at cornerback. But I'm saying I'm picking Joe Thomas over Darrelle Revis for a better player all the time. He did it longer, more consistently. Plus, he barely allowed any sacks throughout all those downs being played. And I think Revis's prime, although it was really great, I'm not going to discredit that. He's still number 2 on this list. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame.
He's number 1 on this list.
He's number 2 on this list. He didn't have as long of a prime.
All right. Now, I will agree with you on this. Joe Thomas's prime lasted longer than Darrelle Revis's prime.
But you're going to say Revis had the better prime.
Yes, Darrelle Revis did have the better prime. My argument is this. Look, and Joe Thomas was the only saving grace, only light at the end of the tunnel. He was the guardian angel of Cleveland for an entire decade. He was the face of that franchise. And anyone that ever played Madden probably knows for like 10 years, Cleveland only ever had one 90 overall player, and it was Joe Thomas every year.
Was the only bright spot of this team.
Yep. Without Joe Thomas, they would have had nothing. But.
Go ahead and make your case.
Darrelle Revis, yes, in 2009 had possibly the greatest season by a cornerback ever. 31 passes deflected. That is the most ever in a single season by a corner. 6 interceptions, 121 yards off those interceptions, and a touchdown, 54 tackles. When you break it all down, quite possibly the best season a cornerback has ever had. And I firmly believe this. Darrelle Revis, top 5 all time at his position. I don't know that Joe Thomas is top 5 all time at his position.
Well, and I don't know who all is at his position, but I'm sure he is.
Now, that's no offense to Joe Thomas. It's just there have been a lot of really good offensive linemen throughout the history of the league.
Are we positive Darrelle Revis is a top 5 corner of all time?
I am positive that Darrelle Revis is a top 5 corner of all time.
You gotta look for that.
You've got Dion. You've got Mel Blount. I mean, who all are you really going to put ahead of Revis?
So look,
Ne-
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, are you? You better be 100% sure that he is top five. Because if I go to records and I find five better corners than Revis,
I
we
firmly,
might add a part two to this.
okay, how about this? Next week, we'll have a top five corners list.
All right.
But I firmly believe Revis was top five all time in his position. No doubt in my mind, one of the greatest cornerbacks ever. And even though his prime didn't last as long as Joe Thomas's, Revis at the height of his ability, Revis was better than Joe Thomas was at the height of his ability. And Revis didn't get that many interceptions, as I said, only 29 career interceptions. But that's mainly because quarterbacks did not test Revis. They wouldn't throw in Revis's direction. That's why it's called Revis Island. Because when Revis lined up against a receiver, you're on Revis Island now. You're in no man's land. You're all alone, Gilligan.
But see, another thing is Revis's prime lasted about half the amount of years as Joe Thomas's prime.
But he reached higher heights.
I'm rocking with the durability. I'm showing Joe Thomas love.
I'm not trying to not show Joe Thomas love. It's just
I know.
my opinion. Revis was a better football player. But that concludes this list. Coming up next, I will select my 15 finalists from the 129 modern era nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023. This has been my co-star and brother Chase Wright. And now, my 15 finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023. In alphabetical order, starting off with Jared Allen, one of the best defensive ends of his generation, one of the most unstoppable. He recorded 136 career sacks, ranks 12th all time. He was drafted in the 4th round, 126 overall by the Kansas City Chiefs in 2004. And he found his way onto the field on offense a few times, catching 2 passes for 3 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also scoring 2 touchdowns on defense. Jared Allen was just an all-around great player. Next up, Mike Alstott. Now, Alstott would be a bit of a long shot to make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The career Buccaneer was drafted in the 2nd round in 1996. 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. Over 5,000 rushing yards, over 2,200 receiving yards, scoring 71 total touchdowns. Not gaudy numbers, but what makes Mike Alstott special is he was the last true and great fullback. The fullback is a dying position in the NFL. Mike Alstott was the last great fullback. He was 6'1", 247 pounds. He was built like a linebacker. And just absolutely nobody wanted to try and tackle the A train. And on to another longtime Buccaneer, Rondé Barber. Rondé Barber's twin brother Tiki just missed making the cut to be a finalist. It is very difficult to whittle that list of 129 nominees down to just 15 finalists. So Giants running back legend Tiki Barber did not make the cut, but the Buccaneer corner Rondé did. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 47 career interceptions. His 10 interceptions in 2001 was the most in the league that year, and he recorded 28 sacks in his career, part of the prestigious 40 interception, 20 sack club. He was named to the Hall of Fame's 2000s All-Decade Team. Up next, we have Dwight Freeney. Dwight Freeney played for the Indianapolis Colts, San Diego Chargers, Arizona Cardinals, Atlanta Falcons, Detroit Lions, and the Seattle Seahawks. He was a first-round draft pick in 2002. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. His 125.5 career sacks ranks 18th all-time, and he is a member of the 2000s All-Decade Team. Andre Johnson, silent but deadly, the epitome of letting your play do the talking. Andre Johnson played for just about every team in the AFC South except for my Jaguars. The first round draft pick in 2003 was the face of the Houston Texans, probably right up until J.J. Watt arrived. He ranks 11th in receptions, 11th in receiving yards, and 48th in receiving touchdowns, all with mostly mediocre quarterback play. And in a 2-year stretch from 2008 to 2009, Andre Johnson recorded 3,144 receiving yards over the span of just 2 seasons. For anyone that had the chance to watch Andre Johnson play, the man was absolutely unstoppable. He was one of the best receivers of his generation and mostly has not gotten the credit he deserves for how great he was. Up next, Tom Nalen. Talk about not getting the credit you deserve. The career Bronco was a 7th round draft pick who defied all odds, became a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All Pro. He played in 194 career games and he won 2 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos. Darrelle Revis. Everyone knows of the fabled Revis Island. Revis was one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, top 5 at his position. He only recorded 29 interceptions during his career because quarterbacks, for the most part, were just scared to throw the ball in this man's direction. Everyone knew it. You don't test Darrelle Revis. He is a member of the Hall of Fame's 2010's All-Decade Team and won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. Jeff Saturday, Peyton Manning's right-hand man, front and center in that Colts offense. Saturday was literally the center of the offense, playing center on the offensive line for the Colts from 1999 to 2011. Undrafted coming out of North Carolina, multi-time Pro Bowler and All-Pro, played 211 games in the NFL, and won a Super Bowl with the Colts. Steve Smith. Steve Smith was a big man in a little man's body. He had a Napoleon complex. He was on the shorter side, but he was unstoppable. He was fierce, like a human chihuahua, which I hesitate to call him that because that almost sounds like an insult, but he had that kind of ferocity. The 3rd round draft pick was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All Pro. He ranks 12th all time in receptions, 8th all time in receiving yards with a whopping 14,731, and he ranks 29th all time in receiving touchdowns. In 2005, he won Comeback Player of the Year when he recorded career highs in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. And like Andre Johnson, he played with mostly mediocre quarterback play throughout his career, despite having played a few years with a prime Cam Newton. Up next, Fred Taylor. Freddie T hopefully will get more love from the voters this time around, with Tony Boselli now opening the gate for Jaguar players to make it to the Hall of Fame. But also working against Fred Taylor is the fact that he only got voted to 1 Pro Bowl during his career, despite the fact that he recorded 6 seasons with over 12,000 rushing yards. That is one of the downfalls of playing in a small market like the Jacksonville Jaguars and being the star of an expansion team. He ranks 17th all time in rushing yards and 40th all time in rushing touchdowns, but a prime Fred Taylor was as good as any of them. Joe Thomas, Mr. Cleveland. From 2007 to 2017, Joe Thomas was the most consistent player in the NFL, probably. Death taxes and Joe Thomas is suiting up on Sundays. Those are what you could always count on in Cleveland. The 3rd overall pick in 2007 was a 10-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, and from 2007 to 2016, Thomas played in all 160 regular season games, and he is a member of the Hall of Fame 2010's All-Decade Team. Up next, DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware wreaked havoc on the NFL from 2005 to 2016. 11th overall draft pick in 2005 by the Dallas Cowboys. He also played 3 years with the Denver Broncos, where he won Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning's club. The 9-time Pro Bowler and 4-time All-Pro ranks 9th all-time in career sacks with 138 and a half. He is a member of the Hall of Fame 2000s All-Decade Team. Up next, Reggie Wayne. Peyton Manning's best receiver, not named Marvin Harrison, was drafted 30th overall in 2001 and spent his entire career with the Indianapolis Colts. He ranks 10th in receptions, 10th in receiving yards, and 27th in receiving touchdowns. He won a Super Bowl with the Colts, but largely does not get the credit he deserves for how great he was due to the fact that he did have Peyton Manning as his quarterback. But consistency is consistency, and even though Peyton Manning was throwing pretty passes, he still has to do his part to make the difficult catches. So Reggie Wayne deserves to make it to the Hall of Fame. Wes Welker. Slightly controversial in the fact that Wes Welker's prime didn't last all that long. He mostly toiled away on the Chargers and Dolphins before being traded to the New England Patriots, where he was the #1 target of Tom Brady for a number of years. Then moved on to the Broncos, playing with Peyton Manning and retiring as a Ram. Wes Welker was undrafted coming out of Texas Tech, but when he made it to New England, he revolutionized the slot position. Bill Belichick absolutely changed the way the offense ran by inserting the shifty, undersized Wes Welker into the slot and having him run quick routes. He made a lot of underneath catches and gained a lot of yards, moving the offense quickly and efficiently. Even though he only ranks 23rd in receptions, 52nd in receiving yards, and 135th in receiving touchdowns, he ranks 20th all-time in all-purpose yards, with 16,797 combined rushing, receiving, kick, and punt return yards. He led the NFL in catches in 2007, in 2009, and in 2011. And I think for the role he played in revolutionizing the slot, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And last but not least, Patrick Willis. Now, Patrick Willis had a short career. He retired early due to injury, but he was a Pro Bowler every year that he played. He led the NFL in tackles as a rookie with 174, and he led the NFL in tackles in 2009 with 152. He is a member of the Hall of Fame 2010s All-Decade Team, and he deserves a spot in Canton for how great of a player he was, even if he had to walk away early. Now, has anyone seen this man, Kadarius Toney? If you have, please inform Brian Dable and the New York Giants of his whereabouts. I'm sure they are very worried. Moving on to our Offensive Player of the Week, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson against the New England Patriots passed for 218 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he rushed for 107 yards and a touchdown. He just missed being Offensive Player of the Year last week, beat out by Tua for that honor. This week, Lamar Jackson gets the credit he deserves for his incredible offensive performance. Lamar Jackson also is the first player in the Super Bowl era with consecutive games of 3 passing touchdowns and 100 rushing yards. He has 12 touchdowns, 10 passing, and 2 rushing on the year, which is more than every team in the NFL except for the Detroit Lions. Lamar Jackson has been unstoppable so far this season. Our Defensive Player of the Week, Jalen Peter, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions. He made life very difficult for Bears quarterback Justin Fields. However, the Houston Texans, despite the best efforts of number 5, lost on a last-second field goal when Cairo Santos booted a 30-yarder on the very last play of the game. Even though the Texans lost the game, I'm still giving Jalen the Defensive Player of the Week honors. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, please check out the interview I did with former Florida Gator player Gideon Ajagbe. We had a great conversation about Deion Sanders, Billy Napier, Anthony Richardson, NIL deals, life as a college athlete. It's on the channel. Check it out. Thanks for watching, and please tune in again next week on Sports Done Right.